Welcome back to the St. Mort Show. We are doing our Skyping with the Stars segment with Miriam Pultro. She is one of the stars of the new web series Casters, as well as in the movie Browncoat's Redemption. It's great to have you here, Miriam.
Thank you. I'm really flattered you asked me. I don't think I'm a star, but
that's a frequent response.
Skype with the Stars, I accept.
Well, that's a frequent reaction from everybody on Skyping and with the Stars.
Is that also an irony?
Not completely. They're stars in my mind. You're in the same rankings as people like George Hardy from Troll 2 and
that's cool.
And the Hobbit hip hop group Lord of the Rhymes.
Oh, I haven't heard of them. I'll be looking them up as soon as this interview is over.
Now, I actually know you from a couple years ago when I was trying to put together a movie, and it never got off the ground. But you were one of those people who came into the audition process, and just immediately I was like, no, like, she's the person for this role. And I was so happy to just see you doing so well, even though the movie never happened and we never really got to hang out that much. We stayed friends on Facebook, and just seeing, like, you know, Browncoat stuff and people getting excited for this Firefly fan film and now Casters. It's just great to see you getting the attention I think you deserve, because I remember everybody who was working on Describing the Moon at the time was all agreed like this she's got what it takes. She's going to be the big thing. Almost to the point that we were like, man, if we shoot this movie, we could just hold out until she gets famous and then just ride the Miriam train.
And then boom, release it.
First starring role. Now, I guess
it would have been my first film.
Yeah. Sadly, that all fell through, but that's for another podcast. So tell me about Browncoats. Are you yourself a Firefly fan?
I am. That's how I got involved. It was produced by a team of people from Maryland, and I was living in Pennsylvania at the time, so it was close enough that I was like, I can audition for this. I can do this. It's a fan film, so it's based in the Firefly universe, but using different characters. Obviously, they didn't want to break any copyright laws or intellectual property and all that. And they were really smart about it. They contacted Fox and Universal to make sure that they weren't stepping on anybody's toes. They were given certain parameters they could use. And because they weren't profiting from the film, they set up a nonprofit organization to produce the film. And all of the proceeds from the DVDs are going to charity. And all the charities that they chose are charities that were either founded by or are supported by people who are part of the original Firefly cast. So that kind of ties it all back in. And they're just a crew of, you know, rowdy, fun people who love Firefly. And being a Firefly fan myself, it was really exciting to be involved with it. I was really pleased that I had that opportunity.
Now, I've noticed, and maybe, again, I mean, it's possibly biased just because I'm friends with you on Facebook, but I've noticed a huge response from the get-go about this particular fan film, much bigger than most other fan films that I've seen. And I guess it has to do with, you know, a tight fan base for Firefly in the first place, but have you been noticing a really big response, or am I just imagining it?
No, I don't think you're imagining it. The fan base for Firefly and Serenity has been hugely supportive. Something I didn't know about Firefly fans was that they are kind of rabid, and I mean that in the best sense. I had several friends who were fans of Firefly, and we would talk about it once in a while, and I turned a few people onto the series because I enjoyed it so much myself, but I hadn't seen anything else by Joss Whedon. I didn't grow up watching Buffy or Angel or any of that, and I didn't really know anything about the fan base and how excitable they were. And so far there have been a few projects that were announced and or began production set in the Firefly universe, and they were also supported very strongly by the fan base, but Browncoats was the first one that we know of that was completed, and so I think the fan response has been really super strong.
Now, has someone rectified this terrible lacking of Whedon in your life?
I have since started watching, based on recommendations and whatnot. I did get through the first season of Buffy. I haven't watched Angel yet. I never saw Dollhouse, but I also had seen before I participated in Browncoats Redemption. I had watched all of Dr. Horrible, which I thought was very charming and witty. And I don't know that I can consider myself a Whedonite in the true sense because I don't know as much as a lot of these people, but I don't want to sound like I'm totally ignorant.
Yeah.
Or like I don't care. I just, it hasn't been my experience I don't necessarily pursue that or whatever. I don't know.
I would stick through, keep going with Buffy.
Okay.
First season is a little rough.
Okay.
It does get better. And it gets awkward with Angel because the way Angel was written, the show of Angel was written to be a continuation of episodes of Buffy for the first season.
Okay.
So, like, the season that Buffy premiered, or the season that Angel premiered, like, you literally, if you watch one episode of Buffy, like the first episode of Buffy season 4, and then the first episode of Angel season 1, they are a continuation of story.
Interesting.
So, like, you can
so you
watch...
kind of have to have prior knowledge in order to really get into Angel.
Sort of. Like, you can watch them separately and enjoy them, but it's kind of a cool way that the episodes keep just running into each other. And then I guess it got difficult because they stopped doing that after, like, the first season.
It became more of a true spin-off.
Yeah. Instead of just an hour-long continuation of the previous episode that you had just watched.
Interesting. From what I understand, and I could be totally wrong again, I don't pretend to be an expert, but from what I've heard from my Whedonite friends, Joss Whedon oversaw but had little to do with the writing of Angel as it continued because he was working on Firefly and Dollhouse and all that other kind of stuff. Is that true?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, it's Buffy's the one I love. Buffy's the one that I could watch over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Firefly is great, but I definitely don't watch that with the consistency that I've rewatched Buffy.
Yeah.
Now tell me about Casters. It's, ironically, you're on my podcast promoting Casters.
It is.
As you said earlier, not funny irony, but it's...
No, it's not. I mean, I don't expect people to laugh. It's like, so ironic. Peace laugh. Casters is a web series about 3 friends who run a podcast, which is kind of it's interesting for me as an actress to get into this character because we are actually recording podcasts with actual guests as a supplement medium to the web series episodes. So the web series episodes are going to be about, maybe 20 minutes apiece. Our first 2 are complete and it premieres this month, which is, this is February 2011. So by the time you're listening to this, I'm assuming it's already up.
Yeah.
But the episodes kind of revolve around the characters and what goes on, and it touches on the podcast and how it links them all together. But there's really very little of the podcast in the episode, and then the actual podcast is about an hour-long podcast, and it's recorded with the actual guest who is playing themselves. So we're interviewing legitimate people, artists, performers, writers, whatever, who are not playing characters. We're interviewing as though we are the people that we're playing. And so it's really interesting for me because it's completely improvised. Like, we have a few questions, but I have to maintain my character while I'm interviewing this real-life person for a podcast. So it's kind of an interesting challenge.
That is, I can imagine that's quite difficult. Even with, like, the St. Mort show that I'm doing, to pull the curtain away a little bit from the show. It's
no, don't do it.
It's not in front of a live studio audience. It's all fake audio clips. And while I do the monologues and everything in that jokey character, I do take the interviews quite seriously. I'll joke around, especially if it's someone that I'm friends with, but I can't do the interview in character. It's something that I just can't do. So the fact that you're doing a full hour podcast completely in a character other than yourself is impressive to me.
It's like a weird blend of reality and acting. It's kind of bizarre, and I feel like it's very appropriate to modern culture and technology where there's this level of interaction with celebrities and this immersion in celebrity culture where they're all tweeting and they're but we still associate them with the characters we've seen them play, so we don't really know them on a real level. It's just this weird interaction of reality and the mystique of performing. I don't know. It's a really interesting juxtaposition to me.
Now, who are some of? Are you allowed to say who some of the people are that are going to be on the podcast?
Totally. We actually, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but probably, and probably it's fine. We were supposed to interview a celebrity blogger named Miss Destructo. Mm-hmm. Real name Amber Osborne. She has a blog and she tweets a lot. And she's kind of like a social media maven type person. And we were supposed to interview her for one of our episodes. And unfortunately, she had a health issue and wasn't able to make it up to New York, which is where we're filming the podcast and everything, to be a part of it. We're hoping maybe in the future that'll work out. But it's people who are maybe not the most famous people you've ever heard of, but in certain circles, they're very well known. Our first guest was a guy named Joe Young. His last name is spelled Jung. And he's a singer-songwriter and an actor who runs a theater company in New York called Project Theater. And they do all new works, very interesting. They're doing a new series of works called Our Bar, and it's all new works set in a bar setting. So they actually perform at a bar. Again, it's kind of like what we're doing. It's an interesting juxtaposition of performing and real life. It's just like pushing boundaries, like challenging yourself as a person, as a performer, and trying to be innovative in the field. And he was actually an understudy in Bloody Bloody Andrew Jackson, which is a musical that ran off Broadway for a little while and then on Broadway for about 3 or 4 months, just closed in January. And it was a critical hit. Like, everybody loved it. I saw it. It was great. And he was in that ensemble for a little while through the run of the show. So it was kind of cool. I mean, he's a really cool guy. He's got his thumb in a lot of interesting theater-related projects in New York. So just interesting stuff.
All right. Well, thank you for coming by, Miriam. Where can my listeners find you if they want to follow you about your further projects and stuff like that?
I have a website. It is my name, MiriamPultro.com. MiriamPultro. And there are links on that to my Facebook page and my Twitter page and all the other outlets that I use.